Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course of Economics of Public Policy. This is an introductory class. Before getting into the details of the course, I'd like to take you through the course outline. So this is a broad course outline. In the introductory few classes, I'd like to discuss on the concepts, structure and linkages of public policy, and also would like to discuss about the process and the outcomes of the public policy. Then we'll move to economics of public policy, where we'll be trying to understand economic methods, tools and techniques to identify different problems of public policy, and how from the economic discipline how we address public policy. So this will be discussed in the introductions. So there are two branches of economics, as you know. One is microeconomics and macroeconomics. So first we'll try to understand microeconomic theory and tools that can be used for public policy to understand problems, and then we'll also understand macroeconomic theory tools for public policy. In microeconomic theory and tools, we'll begin with the utility and constant and optimizations. When we treat public policy or policy as commodity, it is very important to understand its demand and also supply. So which are the factors that actually play important role to for the demand, and also which are the factors are important for the producers to supply that goods, like here in this case is public policy. So in this demand and supply debate, we'll also move to the concept of the elasticity, where we'll try to understand the effect of the price on the demand of the goods or services. Next we'll move to the concept of market, because demand and supply they interact with each other in the market, and there we'll try to understand the efficacy and how efficiently resource can be allocated in various market structures. So when we talk about demand supply in the market, and we'll determine the price, their consumers story and also producers stories and their behaviors are important. There we'll try to also try to calculate consumer surplus and also producer surplus, and to understand social cost. To understand social cost, we'll try to also understand how to calculate deadweight loss. As we said that any price determinations of goods and services, and in this case it is public policy. Here regulation come very important role, and regulation in terms of economic regulations and also government regulations. So antitrust policies will be very important here. As we said, price is perfectly determined in the perfect competitive markets, but then in reality it is often it is contested, and therefore when we try to discuss about the public policy from the social cost point of view, social regulations, asymmetric informations, imperfect informations and externalities will be discussed at length to understand what are the problems there to deal with public policy. Moving to macroeconomic theory and tools for public policy. As we know that growth plays very important role, and for that outcome or output is very important. From macroeconomic lens, aggregate demand and aggregate supply becomes very important. When we talk about aggregate demand, Then also fiscal policy, we'll talk about the fiscal policies, especially role and its elements. When we talk about the elements for the fiscal policies, basically government spending and the taxes will be discussed at length. And also in case of monetary policy, we'll also talk about effects of money supply changes, and also changes in the rate of interest, how it impacts on the overall policy formulations and also in the public policy debate. When we talk about macroeconomic theory, especially aggregate demand and aggregate supply, government budgeting is very important. And in government budget, always it reflects all the other fiscal indicators and also monetary indicators. So now, moving forward, I would like to also mention that for this course of economics of public policy, I'd like to highlight that there are prerequisites for this, and if students who are taking this course, I'll highly recommend that they review on the principles of economics, introduction to microeconomics, and introduction to macroeconomics. So I have also listed down a couple of readings. So some of the selected chapters from the listed readings will be helpful to review. Like initial few chapters from Jonathan Gruber's book on public finance and public policy will be immensely helpful for the students to understand the economics of the public policy. Some of the principles, especially 10 principles of economics, can be reviewed from Mankiw. And also initial few chapters from macroeconomics by Don Bush, Fisher, and Richard Starts will be helpful for understanding macroeconomic theory and tools for the public policy. I also recommend that students they study intermediate microeconomics, initial few chapters that will be helpful, but the whole are variant. So now let's move to the question, like what is public policy. So before getting into public policy, let us also discuss what is policy first. Then we'll come to what is public policy. So policy in simple term, and any book that you go or consider, you will find these are broad definitions that are discussed. Like policy is a set of principles, values, intent that outlines expectations and provides a basis for consistent decision making and resource allocations. So here it can be at the personal level and also at the public level. For example, one person can as an individual can set a goal for his or her life. For instance, if somebody wants to increase time for the writing or reading, and that is a policy that a person has taken, so that can be considered as a policy at the individual level. So definitely it is a set of principles and values. And further going into details, like policy making is itself is a process. So even to realize as an individual that I want to spend more time on assignment over other activities, like for instance sports, then even to make this decision, it is a process that I will make it as an individual, and then I'll kind of set a policy. Or if somebody wants to wake up early in the morning and then wants to sleep at the early at night, so that is also kind of policy is taken at the individual. And to take this individual decisions, it takes time, and then also it is part of the process. This is also true in case of broad political policy that if a nation or political system they want to take it, so one can say that it is perceived by public or private groups who formulate a strategy with regard to personal or political issue or the spectrum. So this is how one can actually understand the policy. Point is like is policy is a problem oriented or solution oriented. So identifying problem and then providing the solution, that also is considered as like part of the policy. And it is also value oriented, like policy ultimately we are trying to achieve certain goal post, and some ethos and human dignity are also important. I'll come to this point on the human dignity later in my lecture. And then it is very difficult to understand from one single disciplinary angle, so it is multidisciplinary, and we'll also try to give the justification like what are the disciplines that we have taken and how economics discipline is particularly helpful to identify the problem and issues in policy formulations and so on. So now coming to definitions of the public policy. So one can say this, policy is a course of actions for tackling a political problem. Policy is a law, regulations, procedure, administrative action, incentive or voluntary practice of governments and other institutions. So here it is again talking about actions of governments, and also a lot of procedures on implementations of the policy, as well as framing and reviewing the policy. So there are other couple of definitions. So one of the other definitions that I found it very important, not only from the definitional's point of view, but also it gives us the paradoxes around public policy, as well as critical thinking or the provocation, like how to think about the public policy. I have taken this particular definitions from Thomas R. Dye. Here Thomas R. Dye had defined public policy in his book in 2017. He has mentioned that public policy is whatever government choose to do, I would like to highlight, or not to do. So here it comes willingness of the government, which issues or the which policies have to take it forward, or which one will be given less priority. Further, he adds that governments do many things, so policy is quite diverse. They regulate conflict within society. So here when I mention that policy also deals with human dignity, because policy deals with the people, and peoples are part of the society. Then they organize society to carry on conflict with the other societies. They distribute a great variety of symbolic rewards and material services to members of the society. They extract money from society, most often in the form of taxes. So these are the key words and the concept that one can consider, and these concepts are quite paradoxical. It's like government's willingness, and here government can be interested to take one policy forward or not, and also society organizes to carry on conflict and with the others, and vice versa. So war can be taken as one of the examples here. They distribute a great variety of symbolic rewards and also material services to members of the society. It gives the hint towards distributions and redistribution of the resources. And here also extractivism concept comes to understand public policy, because the taxes that are collected, that becomes a revenue for the government, and government needs to spend that. So here distributive and redistributive policies are also coming in the picture. So now to sum up this particular definition, that public policy is a course of action or non-action taken by a government with regard to particular issue. So this is how briefly we can understand what is public policy. So now how to perceive public policy, that is important, because from the definition from Thomas Dye and or any other definitions that are given by many authors and the institutions, it actually allows us to think whether this is problem to solution or we are moving from solutions to problem. So this binary paradoxical thing that we actually have to understand while critically understand public policy. Generally it comes like who sets public policy, who gets what in the public policy, like even those who are framing the public policy, they also get something out of it. So it is not only for the people, but those who are policy makers, they are for them also, like who gets what, when, why and how. So that's why we see that many policies they are framed during the elections or for during extreme events. So it is very important, like when and why, like rationale for the public policy, and how actually says about the process of the public policy that one frame. So 2 points that I'd like to highlight, like policies, not necessarily always it will be good policies. Some policies are also bad policies, but then those bad policies are also very important for critical understanding. And therefore, besides good policies, bad policies are also to be studied and critically examined, because that bad policies will give us what went wrong in the process or as an outcome, and then we can rectify. And therefore in the review process we see like how public policies are reviewed and then remodified in the next phase. Here I can take the example of say Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act, how it actually through various processes, how it was perceived, modified and then implemented and also evaluated for every budget allocations. So now different types of public policy. Here I am drawing from Theodore Loy's typology, and here there are 4 types of policies that one can actually conceptualize when to look at public policy. Regulatory policies, in terms of definition or the conception, is basically policies specifying conditions and constraints for individual and collective behaviors. Examples could be environmental protections and rights over access to forest-based resources. Then distributive policies. This is particularly those policies which are introduced to distribute new resources, and examples could be subsidies or investment on infrastructure. It could be investment on social infrastructure, like such as investment on educations or health, or investment on physical infrastructures, means investment on roads, highways, or aviations. So redistributive policies are those which are modified the distribution of existing resources, and example could be welfare, land reform, and then various taxations. So here welfare, for instance, food distributions, or policies related to food security, or say again Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act as a part of the social protection model within the broad welfare framework. And land ceiling can be considered as part of the land reform. So now the last set of policies is constituent policies, which is quite broad in nature, which says that it creates on the modifying the state's institutions. So this is related to some policies to revamp the institutions or the state itself. An example could be creation of state within federal structure or creation of districts within the state. So now before moving further, I'd like to also take a minute on the basic distinctions, where I have found that students in the classroom, they raise the question and also get confused. It is on the basic distinction between polity, politics, and policy. To begin with, polity is the institutional structure, and it also talks about the entire political systems. And politics actually is a process, and here political process, that we want to add it to understand entire ecosystem of the political system. And then policy here is the outcome of the political system. So when we talk about the policy, of course we are talking about politics, we are talking about polity, because it deals with the process, and process within broad political systems. And in the outcomes, outcomes are in terms of decisions, measures, programs, and strategies of the government. Decision means decision making process, in taking any of the public policy measures. Measures are like various public policies, like for instance food security, or employment guarantee programs, and universal education policy. So these are the some of the measures and the programs come as outcome of the public policy. So now when we talk about public policy, political systems, so here when we talk about social and economic outcomes, we are talking about different social and economic conditions. So first we have to understand that, like, what are the discussions that we are doing it within this socio-economic conditions or outcome. So I would like to highlight here is like these are the concerns. Like for instance, for better economic outcome or the growth, we need to also focus on wealth and income. And the major economic concerns for any government or the nation or country is basically on inflation and unemployment, poverty and inequality. These are the major concerns, and the social realities, and of course economic realities as well, because it has the impact on the economic outcomes. So health and longevity, these are also social as well as economic outcome, because healthy people will also will be healthy and productive workforce, and workforce, if it is healthy, then of course economic outcome in terms of employment, it will be much better. And educational achievement and environmental quality also part of the economic and social outcomes. So now when we talk about political systems, so when we talk about the entire ecosystem of the political structure, so federalism is important, like federal structure is important. Different political ideologies are important, because that has the impact on the decisions on the public policy and also on the outcome, and therefore political parties are important organizations in the political systems. Different interest groups are important. And when we are talking about people and also policymakers, voting behavior actually plays very important role. So when some policies are framed, then people are also given the idea about what are the policies and what are the demands are there in the among the people, and in particular settings. And that's how even in the election campaign, you will see that those policies are campaigned, and then based on that, voting behaviors also changes, and therefore voting behavior is very important for individuals to make conscious decision for any particular political and economic outcomes. And bureaucracy is very important for policy implementations and also policy frame. So when we talk about political system, so when we are talking about this political power structure is very important. This is what I want to highlight more. In the public policy, there are various policies like regulatory policies, as I mentioned, and distributive, redistributive policies, and constituent policies. So these are the examples, like educational policies, welfare policies, healthcare policies, criminal justice, taxation, deficits, and spending, and defense policies. So if I want to place within the framework, and I have taken from Thomas R. Dye system model, what he calls it. So what here I would like to highlight is like social and economic outcomes, political systems, and public policies are not playing in isolation. They are interrelated and they are linked. So social and economic conditions, it has the impact on the political and governmental behaviors and institutional behaviors. Likewise, political, governmental, and institutional behaviors has the impact on the public policies. And then social and economic conditions will define like what kind of public policies to be framed. And public policy also define what kind of social and economic outcomes that we will get it in one particular context. So political and governmental institutional behaviors also shape how society and economic outcomes and conditions are. And political, governmental, and institutional behaviors also will get framed by the kind of policy that we frame at the macro level. So these are the references that I have used for this particular lecture. 2 chapters from Thomas R. Dye and 2 chapters from Christoph Neil and Tosun Gel. Hope these 2 readings will help you to understand the concept that we have discussed in this lecture. Thank you very much.